Imagine that you're given the opportunity to place a bet in a race. How would you choose your racer? Would you choose the person who's from your hometown, the person whose outfit you like best, the person who tells you they're the best? Perhaps you would just kind of size them up and see who looks fastest to you, or maybe you would do some research. And as you can probably guess, if you do research, you're more likely to choose the person who's going to win the race. But the type of research matters, right? Just taking personal anecdotes is going to be really different than looking at some statistics and scholarly sources, if those exist for racers. Choosing a worldview is actually no different. There are lots of different ways you can choose a worldview, right? You can choose the one that you've grown up with. You can choose the one that most aligns with your lifestyle. You can choose the one that just at face value seems like it makes the most sense. Or you could do some research. And if you want to choose the worldview and follow the worldview that is most aligned with truth, you have to do some research. And the type of research, again, matters. But this is actually possible to do, right? Faith doesn't have to be blind. In fact, it should be informed. And you can inform faith by looking at the different claims the different worldviews make, and then looking at whether or not the evidence supports or refutes those claims. And different types of evidence could be, scientific laws, historical records, archaeological findings, geographical evidence, logical reasoning, and even sometimes personal experience. Now, you don't need to look at every single claim by every worldview. You can start with the ones that, are maybe the most prominent, most central to a particular worldview. Like in Christianity, you could start with whether or not Jesus actually lived and died and resurrected, right? You can worry about those first and then see where that leads you. Now, as I mentioned, the faith is not supposed to be blind. It's supposed to be informed. This is supported by scripture. Even Jesus says in Matthew chapter 22, verse 37, that you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And the mind part being key. We see lots of stories in the Gospels, the biographies of Jesus, where people are not Christians, they're not following Jesus, and then evidence is provided, and then they become Christians, right? They don't just become Christians without any evidence available. In 1 Peter chapter 3:15, the disciple Peter says, "Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have." Meaning that you should know why you believe what you believe, and to such a degree that you can articulate it to others. He also says with gentleness and respect. And then the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 14 says, "And if Christ has not been raised, our preaching is useless, and so is your faith." Meaning, choosing a worldview is not just a hobby. It's kind of pointless if it doesn't align with the truth. And unlike a race where the outcome doesn't really matter, it's just a fun thing, the outcome of choosing a correct or incorrect worldview really does matter, because our worldview is the basis for everything in our lives. It determines how we spend our time, how we treat people, what we think, and on and on and on. So it matters, and it's worthwhile to take time exploring. If you want to explore the Christian worldview, I would encourage you to check out any of the books linked in my description. Some of them were especially impactful to me. I didn't start out as a Christian. I started out as an atheist and I became a Christian. More on that in another video. But yeah, some of those books were huge in convincing me that there might be something to Christianity. I would also invite you to go ahead and put any questions you have about Christianity or theology or worldviews in the comments, and I'll try to answer them there or in a future video. And otherwise, I'd love to hear too how you chose your worldview, and did you go through a process of questioning and research, kind of like we're talking about today, or something else? And then if you would like to see future videos, go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Thanks so much.